Welcome to the American Football Stories podcast brought to you by Coach Paint. Today is November 9th, 2020. I'm your host, Nick Knudsen. With me, as always, my co-host, Robert Parker. On today's episode, we'll recap this weekend's college football action.
What time is it? Game time! It's gonna be special. They gonna talk about this forever.
Welcome to American Football Stories.
Puts his head down, crashes and spins, and dives. Touchdown!
Bringing together the many perspectives that make up college football in the NFL.
Football is one of the greatest sports ever invented.
From players and coaches.
Believe, baby, believe, baby.
Hey, we playing to win right here, fellas.
To the front office and scouts.
The public is finally beginning to catch up, but they don't even know half the truth.
Us against the world, let's get it.
Your hosts, Robert Parker and Nick Knudsen, bring you American Football Stories.
All right, let's jump in. First, we're going to acknowledge the list of cancellations and postponements, and it's a big one this week. When we did our picks episode on Wednesday, it was only one game. Now it's a long list here. You got Purdue at Wisconsin, Air Force at Army, Tulsa at Navy, UTSA at Rice, Charlotte at Middle Tennessee State, Arizona at Utah, FIU at UTEP, Louisiana Tech at North Texas, Louisville at Virginia, and Washington at Cal. That's quite a list here in the beginning of November. All right, Wednesday night we saw the return of action. Eastern Michigan, Kent State, the Golden Flashes come out with the 27-23 win. Western Michigan tops Akron 58-13, Buffalo 49, Northern Illinois 30, Central Michigan 30, Ohio 27, Miami of Ohio 38, Ball State 31, Toledo 38, Bowling Green 3. Rob, anybody in the MACtion stand out to you? I know we were doing our podcast Wednesday night, so we didn't get to watch a whole lot, but who are you excited to see this year in the MAC?
So, yeah, Nick, you talked about one team in the MAC that, we're kind of going to have our eye on during the season. And my team for the MAC is going to be Buffalo. They typically play good defense. They're a complete team if they can put it together on the offense side of the ball. So, moving forward, definitely going to be keeping an eye on Buffalo.
Good to know. We'll keep our eye on the Bulls. All right, Thursday, November 5th, Utah State fell to Nevada 34-9. I believe Gary Anderson's already out at Utah State. I think I saw that over the weekend. We'll have to double check. Colorado State 34, Wyoming 24. Miami survives a feisty NC State team 44-41. Wasn't a pretty game for the Hurricanes, but unlike in previous years where they'd fall in a game like this, they get it done, they get the win. College football is about surviving and advancing. San Jose State tops San Diego State 28-17. And on Friday night, we become BYU fans on this podcast. We're pushing BYU for the playoffs, even though this weekend might not have been so great for that. It sure started out good. BYU crushes Boise State on the blue turf 51-17. I was thoroughly impressed with the Cougars in this one, Rob. I think this BYU team, they're definitely good enough to get to the playoffs, although Notre Dame might have screwed up that opportunity.
Yeah, once again, this BYU team has a lot of weapons. From tight end Isaac Retz and from the wide receiver Gunnar Romney. So I think this BYU team is very explosive. I know Zach Wilson gets all the credit, but they put a complete game together against Boise State on that blue turf and got the win. So we're still pushing for BYU to the playoffs, and it's still a viable option. But that, just like you said, Nick, that Notre Dame win over Clemson was definitely huge in the standings and probably in the eyes of the College Football Playoff Committee as well.
Well, I'm sure for many people too, it was the first game watching BYU from start to finish. Outside of BYU fans, Friday night standalone game like this, I was thoroughly impressed. They really I mostly went back and watched replays of games, watched some extended highlights and everything. So actually getting to sit down and watch them from start to finish here. Zach Wilson was everything he's advertised to be. Incredible. He should go in the first round in the NFL draft coming up here next year. And I mean, even the running game. Was it the running back Algieri ripped off the 86-yard touchdown run? I mean, the receivers are deep. There's multiple NFL receivers on there. I think there was I'm going through the stat sheet here. There were 4 receivers that had 45 yards or more in the game. You had 3 touchdowns between the receivers and tight ends. I was so impressed with this BYU offense. I will say Boise State, though, quarterback situation is not all that clean, is it?
Yeah, it really wasn't. But once again, I think BYU, they showed up and they came to play. And I mean, regardless of the quarterback situation on Boise side, I think BYU is gonna run off and win this one easily. Regardless, I really think BYU is definitely a contender moving forward, especially with Zach Wilson at the helm.
All right, let's move on to Saturday. Cougars got the job done, but they need some other things to work in their favor. One of those things was Notre Dame getting out of the way in the standings. Notre Dame, unfortunately, may have just thrown the entire playoff into chaos with a 47-40 double overtime win over Clemson. This was a classic game. It'll probably go down as the best game of the season when it's all said and done. The Irish throw up over 500 yards of offense on the Clemson defense. Clemson was missing a few key defenders. It seemed to be kind of a theme this weekend. Few key defenders seemed to get in the way of a team playing pretty well on defense, a normally good defense playing well. Trevor Lawrence obviously out, but that's not even the storyline because DJ Uiagalelei, he ends up throwing for 439 yards anyway. So fantastic play out of the quarterback position. Slow start. Notre Dame had a big touchdown run to start the game, and then they had that freakish pitch play that just fell into their arms as the guy sprinted in the end zone. So the ball definitely bounced Notre Dame's way in this one. But, Rob, I was impressed with them because unlike Boston College last week, who got out to a big league on Clemson, they collapsed as soon as Clemson started finding their rhythm and throwing those punches. Notre Dame kept having to answer back. And I was even getting texts from friends saying, well, why doesn't Notre Dame go for two here, like at the end of the game or in overtime? Because, no faith in the Irish. I as I was saying, too, believe me, I have to apologize for Notre Dame because I've been calling them frauds for the last month here. But, Rob, the Irish, they hung in there. They kept answering back. Very impressive victory, even without Trevor Lawrence, even down the defenders on defense for Clemson. What do you think?
Yeah, honestly, Nick, I think this was definitely a must win for Notre Dame. And the reason why I say that is because, with the Notre Dame program, it's always surrounded by hype and it's always surrounded by tradition. And, by them being independent, they played a tough schedule. But this year, they pretty much catch a break by playing the ACC schedule. So this was definitely a must-win game for them, especially without no Trevor Lawrence. And, they hold serve and they actually come up victorious with the win. So you tip your hats off to Notre Dame. But once again, I think the college football playoff committee is going to look at this down the line and going to say, hey, Heisman front runner Trevor Lawrence, one of the best players in the nation, didn't play. And I think they're definitely going to see each other in the ACC championship game. And that's probably going to be the telltale game moving forward, who's going to get into the playoffs and who's not.
Notre Dame travels 3 of the next 4 games. They got Boston College this weekend at UNC in 2 weeks. That could be a fun game potentially. Notre Dame at North Carolina. Looks like that's on Thanksgiving weekend. And then they play Syracuse and Wake Forest to finish out the regular season. Rob, I think if they can get by that stumbling block with North Carolina, even though the Tar Heels are just playing absolutely no defense this season, but who knows? Sam Howell could get hot. That's really the only threat on their schedule, right?
Pretty much. That's what it's shaping up to be. That North Carolina offense can put up points, but once again, that defense is sorely lacking. So it's probably going to be a shootout 9 times out of the 10. And Notre Dame has the better defense. So I kind of, check that game off and give the edge to Notre Dame in that one. So I don't see them tripping up, from, this week until the rest of the season.
So with that being the case, it's looking like undefeated Notre Dame in the ACC championship game against most likely one-loss Clemson. If Clemson comes back at full strength in the ACC championship game and smacks Notre Dame, I'm talking like, I don't know, 56-10, and the Irish just look terrible. Both teams finished with 1 loss, split season series at 1-1. You think the playoff committee wipes off Notre Dame if that happens?
Yeah, I think if you're the committee, you kind of have to. Just like I said, I think I will see a 1-loss SEC team getting in over a 1-loss, Notre Dame team who didn't, play Clemson at full speed. I mean, pretty much without Trevor Lawrence. So,
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm glad you say that because I hope that is a consideration. So essentially, Notre Dame's whole season is not all about beating Clemson, although it would be nice to beat Clemson in the ACC title game, obviously. But their whole season is suddenly about just playing Clemson, staying undefeated and then playing just well enough in the ACC title game. Because let's present the opposite scenario. Clemson sneaks by full strength. Clemson, Trevor Lawrence, and everybody. They beat Notre Dame on a last-second field goal. Notre Dame's probably getting a playoff spot anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, if we have that scenario play out, then I think it's definitely going to be a little bit different when it comes to the after result.
Right.
But just like you said, if Clemson, full strength with Trevor Lawrence goes out there, full speed ahead and just blows Notre Dame out, I don't think Notre Dame even gets a look at the college football playoffs, and they kind of move off Notre Dame and then kind of land on another team. And BYU is right there behind them. So I
Texas
think,
A&M.
and Texas A&M, just
Yeah.
like you said, that one loss SEC team, and Cincinnati is also in the mix still. So
Right.
yeah, so moving forward, it's a couple teams. I'm waiting for Notre Dame to kind of slip up and trip up. So it's definitely some teams in contention for that last playoff spot.
They definitely made the playoff race a little more chaotic, and they did the ACC a favor with that win. Notre Dame much higher potential for two teams to get in from the ACC now. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. All right, Ohio State 49, Rutgers 27. The Buckeyes were up 35-3 in the first half. They were absolutely cruising. Justin Fields once again looks fantastic. 24-28, 5 touchdown passes, 314 yards. The man's unstoppable in the Heisman race. But then the second half happened, Rob, and the only reason I even want to spend any time talking about this game, because it wasn't a very good game. It was pretty much a blowout. But Greg Schiano busted out every trick in the book. There were throwback passes. There was an onside kick that ended up getting overruled. But Rutgers they fought Ohio State at the bottom of the pile. Refs ended up catching that, gave Ohio State the ball. But there was throwback passes to tackle eligible players. There were throwback passes on punts and kickoffs. I don't know. Like, we had Kevin Kelly on our podcast, the coach from Pulaski Academy in Arkansas, and everything he talked about, it just makes so much sense, and it's backed up by the numbers. Why would Rutgers just not come out playing that way? I mean, honestly, the first kickoff they received, they did a throwback, so technically they kind of did come out playing that way. But take this as a lesson? Every team that's overmatched, Vanderbilt for the rest of the season, why not just play super aggressive like this? It was fun as hell to watch Rutgers do this. I want to see more of that going forward. Good for Schiano. So Rutgers actually fought, and they covered that 38-point spread pretty easily, didn't they?
Yeah, just like you said, this was actually Rutgers' closest game with Ohio State ever within the history of the two programs. So I think the trick plays did kind of keep Ohio State off balance in the second half. But just like you said, when you're undermanned like a Rutgers or a Vanderbilt, like it wouldn't help. It wouldn't hurt to throw in some trick plays and to play aggressive on the offense side of the ball. Hell, even on the defense side of the ball, to kind of cover that spread or have some type of moral victory. But great for Graciano and Rutgers. It seems like he has a vision for his program, and it's probably going to come to fruition probably in the next couple of years, especially when he gets the recruits in there. But I like the Rutgers competing to the very end of this game, and that's the way they've been doing all year long. So you tip your hats off to Graciano for being the coach that he is, and hoorah for that Rutgers program.
Despite the blowout, I kept checking in on it just because I'm like, what did Rutgers do now? I mean, hey, at the end of the day, I know we all take ourselves serious in the football world. This is an entertainment. This is a game of entertainment. If you're gonna get your brains beat in, be fun to watch. Good for Greg Schiano. I'm happy. It's like you said it perfectly. I'm happy for Rutgers that they at least made it entertaining. But once again, the Buckeyes absolutely dominate. They roll. And Rob, I'm looking at Ohio State's schedule going forward. I think their biggest challenge, they're playing Maryland this weekend. They play Indiana next weekend. And based on the way Michigan's looking so far, that might be their 2 toughest games remaining.
Yeah, this Indiana team has actually been playing really well, and it's shaping up like that might be the toughest game on their schedule.
We might have to get our Hoosier friend Jeremy on the podcast next week to talk up some Hoosier football going into the Ohio State game. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we will have to bring Jeremy on, one of our special guests, to get that Indiana crowd pumped up. But once again, this Ohio State team pretty much is not going to see any competition until the college football playoffs. I just think they're the superior team in the Big Ten, and with Michigan, having the year that they're having, it just seems like it's Ohio State in the field. And the field is really, really wide right now. It's not even close. So I think Ohio State just rolls for the rest of the year until it gets into the college football playoffs.
All right, Rob. Next up, the number 8 Florida Gators defeat the number 5 Georgia Bulldogs 44-28. We openly admit that we are Florida Gator fans on this podcast. So, Rob, for the next 20 seconds, I want you to go off as a fan and then shut off your fandom, and we'll talk about the game.
Well, I tell you this, it's definitely great to be a Florida Gator, and it's great, even greater to have a quarterback that can, push the ball downfield and find the end zone.
Husband?
So definitely he had. I think Kyle Trask has definitely put himself in the Heisman race, just with his play, just dissecting that Georgia defense. Man, what a hell of a job Kyle Trask and that offense did. Dan Mullen calling the plays, and they put a great game plan against Georgia. And it just seems like they were off balance all game long. So you tip your hats off to Dan Mullen and that coaching staff, and Heisman, candidate Kyle Trask. You kind of have to put him in that same category as Zach Wilson and Mac Jones. So he's definitely playing the part. So go Gators.
All right. Well, that'll be the shot clock on that. Good way to finish. All right. Well, Kyle Pitts, the all-world tight end out of Florida, 2 receptions for 59 yards, an incredible touchdown catch too, over-the-shoulder catch, before he was knocked out of the game with a pretty tough hit that ended up getting the Georgia defender thrown out of the game as well for targeting. Tough hit to watch, but yeah, that's football. That's what it is. Rob, what I really noticed in this game was the field day the running backs had out of the backfield. Obviously, Georgia missing a lot of key pieces on that defense. And we could talk about the Georgia quarterbacks in a minute, but I feel like we always talk about the Georgia quarterbacks. A little tired of talking about it. Who hasn't talked about the Georgia quarterbacks, right? Let's take a break from talking about the Georgia quarterback situation this week. Let's focus on the fact that defense was supposed to be what kept Georgia in it. And you're missing All-American Richard LeCounte. You're banged up along the line. It's not what we've seen from Georgia so far this season. And really, the matchup problem they had all day was they couldn't cover Malik Davis out of the backfield. They couldn't cover Wright out of the backfield. They couldn't cover – Tony had 7 quiet receptions, but the running backs went nuts out of the backfield. I think they had 212 yards receiving out of the backfield, Rob.
Yeah, it just seemed like that wheel route was open all game for Florida. And Dan Mullen was dialing it up. So it just seems like Georgia couldn't stop it. And honestly, it seems like those are the type of routes that Kirby Smart and Georgia run with James Cook. Yeah. But it really seemed like they didn't have any answer for it. And great for that running back room. I know, the wide receivers have been getting the love all year long, especially with Kadarius Toney. And Trevon Grimes actually had a big boy catch too. So that was a NFL Sunday catch that Grimes kind of had for that touchdown. So you tip your hats off to this Gator offense, and actually, just like how you said, you want to focus on the Georgia defense. I know this Gator offense gets all the love too, but how about this Florida defense? This Florida defense actually came to play.
Yes and no. And the only reason I'm going to be a little bit of a Debbie Downer on this for you, how many open routes did you see Georgia receivers running in the secondary that just didn't get hit? And I know we said we weren't going to go too deep in the quarterbacks here, but these Georgia quarterbacks were 9 of 29 passing for 112 yards on the day. How many missed opportunities did you see throughout the day? Because I could count it at least 4.
Yeah. You're right. You're right about that. Stetson Bennett and Dewan Mathis actually they did miss some big plays,
Yeah.
and I know Georgia had a big drop. I think that was a third down. On the third down, the tight end had a big drop going across the middle. That was huge for the momentum that Georgia was trying to kind of take back from Florida. But just like you said, Georgia quarterbacks did miss a lot of open targets. But once again, that's the nature of football. Just like you said earlier with the Kyle Pitts hit, it's a game of inches. So I know it was some open guys there, maybe missed coverage, blown assignments, but overall, I think the Florida defense came to play with energy, and they kind of showed up. So I tip the hats off to them and say, hey, keep the energy. I think Todd Grantham did a good job scheming everything up, but just like you said, they did kind of get exposed on the back end, a couple of times, but it was overthrown balls that kind of saved them. But just like you say, I like the defensive effort that Florida displayed.
I'm only picking on that, Rob, because Florida now firmly in control of the SEC East. Georgia's with 2 losses now because they lost to Bama. Florida would have to lose 2 more games to give it back to Georgia at this point. That's not happening. Florida's going to go to Atlanta, very likely play Alabama. Mac Jones will not miss those throws. That's the only thing. But you know what? If you're a Florida fan, who cares about that right now? You finally got over the Georgia mountain that's been there for the last few years. Good for you. I got a huge problem with the fact that Kirby Smart didn't give first play of the game, 75-yard run by Zamir White, and he gets 6 more carries the whole game. James Cook, 6 carries for the whole game, Rob. I'm not sure what they're doing. They weren't passing well. They weren't even really trying to run the ball. I don't know what they were doing.
Yeah, it really seemed like Kirby kind of wanted to open things up, and I think in regards to the Florida defense, that front 4, that front 7 is probably the strength of that Florida defense, and the back end is not really that pretty good. So I thought Kirby Smart probably thought he was going to come out and try to attack Florida, but it didn't really work out that way. And once again, once you get behind that many touchdowns, you kind of going to have to open up the offense and not run the ball as much.
Well, big win for Florida. Georgia got some soul searching, got some questions. Apparently, JT Daniels, that knee is just not ready to go. So I guess we've been beating that drum too for a while. I think we got our answer on JT, whether or not we're going to see JT Daniels this season. Don't think it's happening at this point. So if you're Georgia going forward, find some combination of Bennett and Mathis that work, or give Mathis the work going forward. Like, let the guy, he just felt like he was playing tight the whole time. He's a freak athlete. We saw him bust out a couple 17-yard runs on the Gators. Let him relax. Let him play. Let him get in the space and make some plays. That guy can play if they let him. So, honestly, I think Bennett did his job. He stepped in admirably, but he's going to get exposed when you play these top-level teams like Alabama and Florida. That's what happened. We called that going into the game. So, I think that it's something to consider with Georgia going forward, and you need to really kind of evaluate that and figure out that quarterback position here. All right, Cincinnati, number 6 Bearcats absolutely obliterated the Houston Cougars. Cincinnati had 342 yards rushing, 500-yard day. Hey, Bearcats, they're quietly getting it done. They're quietly sneaking up the polls, but they have been just tearing people apart. 42-13 against SMU, 49-10 against Memphis, 38-10 against Houston. Outside of UCF, Rob, that's the upper echelon of the American Athletic Conference. It's a pretty good conference right there, and they're just shredding the top teams.
Yeah, they really are. This Cincinnati team, just like I said earlier, we were talking about, BYU. They're definitely one of those teams that's lurking around for that college football playoff spot, and they have the pieces on both sides of the ball. So I think, if Cincinnati can keep rolling and keep winning, they're definitely going to propel themselves into that conversation.
Cincinnati has ECU this week, and next week goes to UCF in Orlando. Rob, why are we talking about Cincinnati and BYU as credible playoff threats this season, but we laughed at UCF a few years ago? And by the way, I did like UCF. I thought UCF deserved a shot at a playoff spot a few years ago, but I understood the argument to keep them out too. So I didn't totally shouldn't say it's fair to say like everyone laughed at UCF on that, but like I feel like everyone partly because UCF UCF fans are just obnoxious in general online about it, but they weren't really given a serious shot. Now we're talking about Cincinnati and BYU every week right now. What's the difference?
I think it's the type of year that we have, and once again, you got the Pac-12 just getting started back this past week, so they're coming on a little bit late. Same thing with the Big Ten. So I think it's a bigger sample size for Cincinnati and BYU, and it's actually showing in their favor. And it seems like they both have complete teams on both sides of the ball. So I think this year they get a look that they probably normally wouldn't have got. If it was a full, complete season where all the teams starting on time. And once again, that BYU schedule, by them being an independent, would been a little bit more hectic with them playing the the conference games that they normally play, or non-conference games, I should say. So that BYU team might not be undefeated if they had to play a couple more of those, teams that they would normally play on their schedule. So I think that it's a lot of factors that come into play with that one.
Well, but to your point, between the Big 12's already eliminated, and then between the Big 10 and the Pac-12 with those short seasons, they have no room for error. So you're really only looking at Ohio State and Oregon as super serious threats out of those conferences, right? So there's more room to talk about it this year.
Yeah, definitely. Just like you said, I think out of the Pac-12, Oregon and USC, you're going to talk about those two. And with the Big Ten, the way, Michigan and Minnesota has been playing, and Wisconsin with the COVID situation, it really seems like it's Ohio State, and that's about it. So it really kind of, leaves up a conversation for a couple of other teams to kind of sneak in there. And I think that's what's kind of happening to BYU and Cincinnati.
All right, let's do two quick hitters here. Texas A&M 48, South Carolina 3. Stanford drops a game to Oregon 35-14. The 21-point margin would have been closer if you made one of the 4 missed field goals on the night, Stanford. Rob, quick thoughts on Texas A&M's demolishing of South Carolina. I thought the Gamecocks were a better team than this. After the last 2 games, not so sure. And then Oregon playing a little tighter with Stanford than might have been expected.
Yeah, it really seems like Will Muschamp had some problems down there in Columbia, South Carolina. I really thought South Carolina was, more of a complete team. I know they lost a couple big time players to the draft this past year, but once again, the recruiting that Muschamp has done in South Carolina has been pretty good. But losing to Texas A&M that big of a margin is unacceptable. And is this Texas A&M team for real? It really seems like Kellen Mond is playing like the Kellen Mond of old, so that's definitely a help to that A&M team and program as well. And going to the Oregon game, one thing that I was looking at was just the quarterback position. I know Justin Herbert has moved on to the NFL, so that was one thing that I was kind of concentrated on. And it really seems like, if they can kind of get that position solidified and get great play out of that position, then Oregon will be fine, and they'll definitely be in the conversation, come December.
Well, we'll have more time to talk about the Ducks, but how often do you get to put the Indiana Hoosiers on a pedestal in college football? Indiana, they're 3-0. 2 of their 3 wins are against Penn State and Michigan. Realize both those schools are down this year, but part of the reason they're down is because Indiana beat them. Indiana is playing some good football. Our friend Jeremy Coleman looking like a genius with his what do you call him, 8-2, 9-1 projection. He's probably dead on with that right now. Indiana, 460 total yards, 342 yards through the air, and they hold Michigan to just 13 yards rushing on 18 attempts on the day. But part of the reason they didn't run the ball too much is because the Hoosiers jumped the Wolverines in the first half. They're up 24-7 at halftime. Rob, I want you to talk about what Indiana is doing first, and then we'll do the standard Harbaugh talk that you have to have every time Michigan loses now.
Yeah, I think you have to talk about, the quarterback play. And every time you have great quarterback play, I think, that's definitely a great recipe to have to win games. And right now, Michael Penix is dealing. It really seems like he has command of the offense, and the defense is actually playing great ball. So with that being said, Indiana's having a complete team. They're playing a complete game and complete ball. So I think you're seeing that, and it's translating into wins. And once again, we have to have the hardball talk, and we talk about the hot seat and is it getting hotter or is it cooling off? It's not looking too good. I tell you that the maize and blue is not looking too good, and it really seems like they can't run the ball, they can't throw the ball. We were talking about, a couple weeks ago, we was talking about Milton as, being a Heisman dark horse candidate and just talking about his freak athletic ability. And it just seems like, that hasn't transitioned until the last two games and wins.
What I just with the Harbaugh thing, it's so easy to fire coaches. Who are you hiring that makes you better than Jim Harbaugh? Are you hiring Urban Meyer in Michigan? No, you're not. Who are you hiring?
That is the question right there. Every time it comes down to a coach getting fired, who you're going to bring in. But once again, it really seems like the Michigan program brought Harbaugh in to kind of change things around, and I know they've been recruiting really, really well out there, but it hasn't been transitioned until that big time win against your rival, which is Ohio State.
That's part of the problem is that they're playing under Ohio State's thumb right now, and that's really the. Is it more? Let me ask you this, because I think I see them as separate questions. They're split it into three parts. There's winning football, which Harbaugh has accomplished. He's won a lot of football games at Michigan. So, and by the way, Michigan was not necessarily a consistent winner when he got there. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that one.
Right. And I'm not talking about you Michigan fans. I'm not talking about 1930s and 40s and Bo Schembechler. I'm talking about Rich Rodriguez, Brady Hoke. Things were not good when Harbaugh got to Ann Arbor, and he made them into a perennial top 15, top 25 team. Perennial top 15, though, where Michigan belongs. The problem is Ohio State is playing the best football they've played, maybe the best stretch of football they've had in their illustrious history is going on right now in Columbus, Ohio. They're just crushing it, and they happen to play in your division, which prevents Harbaugh from winning a Big Ten East, getting into a Big Ten championship game, and winning national titles. You're not going to do that. I mean, you know who has that same problem? LSU, Auburn. They have that problem. But unlike Michigan, those guys break through once every 4 to 5 years, don't they?
They do. And you saw that last year with LSU. Joe Burrow having a tremendous Heisman season that he had. And then you have Auburn with Cam Newton that year. So just like you said, those other teams break through, and Michigan doesn't break through like that. And you just got to look at the big wins that Michigan has. Like what big win that they had in the last couple years. I probably can think about the ball game against Florida where they beat Florida in the season opener. That was probably a huge win for them. But I can't think of too many big wins for this Michigan program in the last 3 years.
And you know what? I'm not defending Harbaugh to the point of letting him off the hook. I mean, we saw them, by the way, they beat top 10 Notre Dame last year, 45-14 at the end of October. I mean, you can find wins. They beat Wisconsin. They beat Penn State a few times. You can find some good wins in there. But I get it. The guy makes way too much money to be let off the hook and treated like a normal coach. It might be just a point where if Michigan fans are really getting at an impasse with this thing, where maybe it is better off. Some NFL team will hire Harbaugh. He could go find a job anywhere tomorrow. But if you're Michigan, be careful what you wish for, because you had Brady Hoke, you had Rich Rodriguez. And by the way, Rich Rodriguez is not some chump off the street. He was one of the hottest coaching hires. Remember Alabama almost hired him?
Yeah.
So be careful, Michigan. That's all I'm saying. Be careful before you run this guy out of town. I'm sorry you lost to Indiana. The Michigan State thing, can't explain it. But I'm seeing some names out there like Dave Clawson. Like, Dave Clawson's a fine coach. Is he going to accomplish things that Jim Harbaugh didn't? I don't think so. Matt Campbell, maybe. Matt Campbell lost to Louisiana to open the season. Let's remember that. Matt Campbell's not perfect either. So I don't know. I think Harbaugh gets a bad rep. it's unfortunate, but maybe it is getting to a point where the volume is getting a little higher on that. So anyway, that's my Harbaugh rant. Oklahoma State 20, Kansas State 18, Coastal Carolina 23-6. Love that teal field. Checked out some of that game, a few plays in that game. Marshall crushes UMass 51-10. Iowa State 38, Baylor 31. Tight finish there. SMU 47, Temple 23. Oklahoma dusts Kansas 62-9. USC, Arizona State. This was an epic collapse. Arizona State was up 27-14 late. USC scores, gets an onside kick, goes down, scores touchdown, takes a 28-27 lead late, and Arizona State falls to 0-1 after blowing a pretty winnable game, Rob.
Yeah, just like you said, this was one game that I really was interested in watching with, Kadon Slavas and Jaden Daniels going head to head. But once again, Arizona State was dominating this game pretty much the whole entire game. And just like you said, collapsed. They really collapsed and they gave it away. And USC really stole a win that they really need in order to kind of compete for the playoffs moving forward. But definitely an ultimate collapse from Arizona State. They had this game and they just let it get away from them.
Yeah, they're going to kick themselves for that one. But USC finds a way to survive. Good for the Trojans, I guess. Pac-12 football, baby. West Virginia at Texas, the Longhorns 17, Mountaineers 13. Liberty beats in-state, I guess, rival now we could call it, if Liberty's going to be busting out wins here. Virginia Tech 38-35. Hey, did you happen to catch the end of this game, Rob?
I actually didn't get a chance to. Actually didn't get a chance to.
So Liberty lines up for a 59-yard field goal late. So that's from what, the 42-yard line? Liberty lines up for a 59-yard field goal, kicks the ball, and as it's kicked, it's blocked right away. And immediately Virginia Tech picks the ball up, and they are just running down because the ball went behind the line of scrimmage. Virginia Tech picks it up, runs it down the sideline, guy's untouched, scores a touchdown to win the game for the Hokies. It's going to be 41-35. Absolute pandemonium's going on, but the whistles keep coming through for the officials, and the officials at midfield waving timeout. Justin Fuente, head coach of the Hokies, he was worried that Virginia Tech didn't have the proper alignment on the field goal, so he called a timeout, and he ends up icing his team out of a victory because Liberty runs its offense onto the field. There's 8 seconds left when that happened. Runs its offense on the field. For whatever reason, the Virginia Tech defensive backs are playing about 20 yards off the ball, playing prevent defense, but there was 8 seconds left. So Liberty just wings a pass out to the sideline, steps out of bounds, 8 yards downfield, and they kick a 51-yard field goal to win the game, 38-35. Devastating loss if you're a Hokies fan.
Yeah, definitely a devastating loss for Virginia Tech. But on the flip side of that, it really seems like Hugh Freeze really has this Liberty program moving in the right direction. Everything that was surrounding Hugh Freeze, when he was at the Ole Miss program, it really seems like he kind of humbled himself and he kind of he's actually coaching and having fun right now. And it really is paying off for that Liberty program.
All right, South Florida almost pulls off an upset over Memphis, but the Tigers pulled out in the second half, 34-33. You like to see a little sign of life from Jeff Scott's program there in Tampa. You know they're building something there. It'll probably be a couple-year project, but nice to see USF compete against one of the better teams in the AAC. Tulane beats East Carolina 38-21. North Carolina 56, Duke 24, Georgia State 52, Louisiana Monroe 34, Northwestern takes care of Nebraska. Some ugly quarterback play in that one for Nebraska. 49-7, Iowa over Michigan State. Sparty, I guess they left it all on the field in Ann Arbor because it wasn't even close against the Hawkeyes. Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns top Arkansas State, 27-20. Georgia Southern 20, Troy 13, Boston College 16, Syracuse 13, Southern Miss 24, North Alabama 13. Appalachian State 38, Texas State 17, and let's get to the Big Ten here. I wanted to highlight this game. It was not a ranked game, but Maryland just crushed Penn State. Where did this come from? What is happening? What's happening in Maryland, Rob?
I mean, great quarterback play is happening in Maryland right now. But what's happening in Penn State, I have no clue. It really seems like they have no clue what's going on there. It really seems like, that loss to Indiana kind of really took a lot out of them, losing like that towards the end of that game. And it's showing up on the field. I know they have opt-outs, stud linebacker Michael Parsons. But once again, like, Penn State has too much talent to go in and kind of drop an egg to Maryland, who's kind of really, upstart program, kind of getting things turned around with the new hires and the new quarterback play that they have out there. So I think the question is more so what's going on with Penn State right now.
Well, I had this game on DVR and I watched some of it last night because I had no idea what was going on with that game because I just kept seeing the score all day. I was like, wow. But Maryland started out in the first half, their first 2 touchdowns. It was almost the exact same route. And Taulia Tagovailoa hits Raheem Jarrett on a 42-yard pass for a touchdown. And the route he ran was almost identical to the route he ran on the very next drive. Well, they punted on the next drive, but the following drive after, it was almost the identical route. Tagovailoa to Jarrett, this time for 62 yards. It looked like the same play for a touchdown. But Maryland then scored a third touchdown in the first half with a 38-yard run from Jake Funk. And the Terps were up 28-7. They ended up getting one more before halftime. They're up 28-7 before the half. And Penn State just was shell-shocked, not to be corny with the turtle analogy. I didn't even think about that. But Maryland is absolutely unbelievable this year. Unbelievable turnaround story from week 1. They were down 45-3. But you get Ohio State this week to really see where you stand. Rob, did you happen to catch their Twitter post after the game?
No, I didn't get a chance to catch that.
Yeah, so it basically had a giant Maryland player standing in the middle of Happy Valley with a whiteout, and it said Sad Valley on it. And that was a week after they beat Penn State, and it was Tagovailoa's on a dock with a little boat sinking in the back. It said Boat Road. So whoever's running that Maryland social media account is just having a good time.
I mean, definitely. I mean, let the memes keep coming, especially if Maryland's keep racking up the wins. And I mean, that offense is humming right now, and it's only going to take time for Mike Locksley to get the guys that he wants in there. The type of recruiter that he is. So this Maryland team definitely looks like they're moving in the right direction. I tell you that.
Well, after week 1, we were questioning, is this guy might be a bad coach? We were questioning that after week 1. And so he bounces back. 2 big wins for Maryland. But, hey, beating Penn State, you start beating name programs like that in the Big Ten. I don't care if Penn State's down. That's still a big win. That's still a big win for Maryland. Nice win for Locksley. Terps improved to 2-1. Welcome the Buckeyes into College Park this week. Minnesota kills Illinois 41-14. Vandy hangs around, keeps it interesting late with Mississippi State 24-17. The Bulldogs prevailed. Texas Christian, TCU 34, Texas Tech 18, Fresno State 40, UNLV 27, Pitt 41, Florida State 17, FAU 10, Western Kentucky 6, Colorado 48, UCLA 42, and the last game we're going to talk about today, Tennessee up 13-0 at halftime, running the ball, finally sticking to the ground, not putting too much in Jared Garantano's hands. Garantano goes down early in the third quarter to injury. Backup quarterbacks come in. The Vols offense is a total disaster for the rest of the night. Meanwhile, Felipe Franks and the Arkansas offense get going. The Hogs beat the Volunteers 24-13. 3-3. Did anyone see Arkansas at 3-3 at midpoint at the midpoint here of the season?
I know we didn't. I know when we kind of did our segment. Yeah, actually going winless for the season. But you just got to, tip your hat off to that Arkansas program. actually one team that I was actually scared of. We actually talk about us being fans on this pod, Nick. Actually, one team I was kind of afraid of this year was Tennessee, but not anymore, dude. It really seems like Jeremy Pruitt is having a hard time, making the decisions that's gonna, make this team a competitive week in and week out. And we talk about Georgia at the quarterback position, making that switch from Stetson Bennett to JT Daniels or giving Carson Beck a try. It just seems like Jeremy Pruitt has to kind of make the switch and put Harrison Bailey in there, especially if he's the future of this program at the quarterback position. You kind of have to give him the reins right now and kind of let us see what he can do moving forward.
Yeah, and by the way, Bailey did get plenty of opportunity to play, and he looked like he did not look that good. He did go 6-9, but he threw 2 interceptions. But I think you're right. I think you got to move on from Garantano at this point. He's had plenty of opportunity to prove himself. Kind of is what he is. But the thing is if you're going to run the ball and keep the ball on the ground, they end up giving Eric Gray got 31 carries for 123 yards. I've been calling for Tennessee to run a Baltimore Ravens light type of offense where you just let that quarterback be more of a runner. And Garantano, he can hit the receivers when they're there, but don't make him drop back 50 times a game and play that way. Make him pick and choose his spots. In the meantime, let him beat it. He's got some good athleticism. Let him use his legs to win you some games. So I think they were trying to do that. That plan just went astray in the second half. Felipe Franks, good second half too. Franks is supposed to go to the Swamp this week and play the Gators, but did you hear that Sam Pittman just got diagnosed with COVID?
Yeah, I did hear that, and unfortunately, I know a couple COVID cases actually popped up in that Texas A&M program as well. So I think they kind of shut some stuff down in their facility. So this Tennessee Texas A&M game actually might be on hold, but we never know. We're still waiting to hear some details out there, Nick.
Good information there, Rob. All right, Washington State 38, Oregon State 28. Nice win for first-year head coach Nick Rolovich there. Hawaii gets a win 39-33 over New Mexico. Rob, that's all the college football we got. We're going to move on to the Did You Know question brought to you by Coach Paint. I'm going to turn it over to you.
So for this week's episode of Did You Know, Nick, I actually would just like to kind of dive in and piggyback onto a question that we had before when we talked about what, NFL quarterback is the all-time leader in interceptions. Mm-hmm. And we actually came to, conclusion and answer that one with the one and only Brett Favre. So I would just like to ask you that same question, but on the collegiate level, Nick. So we're going to ask you in the audience, on the collegiate level, what quarterback is the all-time interception leader on the collegiate level? So that's the Did You Know for tonight in this episode, Nick.
It's a great tool that allows us to add graphics to player highlight clips similar to the graphics you see on TV. Coach Paint offers the ability to clearly tell a straight video while
Yeah, so before commercial break, Nick, I asked you in the audience our Did You Know question for tonight's episode in regards to what collegiate quarterback is the all-time leader in interceptions.
All right, it's got to be a starter that's been around for quite a while, played a lot of football. That's a dumb thing to say, of course it is. I'm guessing it's probably more within the last 20 years because they're airing the ball out more. I'm trying to think here. Man. I'm trying to think 4-year quarterbacks. It's so rare to have like a 4-year quarterback like a Jake Fromm. Jake Fromm didn't throw that many interceptions though.
No, he didn't. I give you a hint. I tell you what, the SEC is known for its grind out style. Maybe, last year with Joe Burrow kind of opening it up, but it's definitely not a quarterback in the SEC. I can tell you that. Nick.
All right. So I'm probably going to go Big 12. No reaction there, huh?
I mean, you can never go wrong with the Big 12 who never plays defense in that air raid style of play out there.
But someone must be playing defense if someone's throwing all these interceptions, though, right?
Yeah, you're right about that.
All right, I don't know, so I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna pull one of the Texas Tech quarterbacks out, and I'll just go with Cliff Kingsbury.
Okay, I mean, definitely air raid style system. Definitely dropping back and throwing a lot of passes, but I have a lot of faith in you, Nick. I know you're a student of the game, and you love the history of the game. So I'm gonna give you another try on this one. So we're gonna give you a ant on Cliff Kingsbury,
right.
and we're gonna give you another crack at it.
How many interceptions?
80.
80. Oh. 80?
80 career interceptions.
Good Lord. Big 12?
Well, I gave you the hint
I already
about
got
the
it wrong.
SEC.
I already got it wrong. I'm like, this is my second guess.
Second guess, yeah. So you went with Cliff Kingsbury on the first guess, so I'm giving you another guess. It's not the Big 12.
No? Oh, man. I have no idea right now. God, why would they allow someone to start that long who throws 80 interceptions?
I mean, 80 interceptions, but a lot of touchdowns to kind of go with it too.
Still 80 interceptions. Dude, I have no idea here. I have no idea. No, you got me.
Come on, give me another guess, Nick. I need you to give me another guess before we move on.
Names, but then they're like they haven't. Jake Plummer.
Now you're just getting cold on me, Nick. So I'm gonna go ahead. And give you the answer. So the answer is actually gonna be Timmy Chang, Hawaii's quarterback.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie. I thought Timmy Chang's name came across my mind, but I thought, nah, he was too accurate. Like, he passed for too many yards. I didn't think there was any chance it was Timmy Chang. Man.
Timmy Chang.
Damn it. I should have just trusted my gut. I didn't think there was a chance he threw that many picks. That shocks me, actually. That his name came up in my head only as someone, like, thinking of, like, air raid quarterbacks. Man. All right. Now I'm just mad. I'm just mad that I missed that. All right, Rob, you want to read us out? I'm gonna stew over here.
Yeah, I'm actually, basking in the glory of stumping you, actually on the did you know question. So I feel, very good about that. It's definitely been a while. But that was the one question I thought you would get. I had more faith in you, Nick, than you had in yourself.
I guess you shouldn't.
But yeah, so with nothing else, I'm gonna go ahead and read us out. Once again, I'd like to thank the audience for listening to this episode of American Football Stories. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and YouTube. Please subscribe and rate us 5 stars. Follow us on Twitter at American FB Stories, and check out our website, AmericanFootballStories.com. Once again, my name is Robert Parker III, and my co-host is Nick Newsom. Thank you, and we will see you on next episode.
You play to win the game. Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it. That's the great thing about sports. You play to win. And I don't care if you don't have any wins. You go play to win. When you start telling me it doesn't matter, then retire. Get out. Because it matters.
I hope there's Bigfoot. I don't think there is. The reason I don't think there is because we found bones of dinosaurs and everything else, but we haven't found bones that I've heard of Bigfoot.
We should have been in a ball game with fast field goal. The coach had sent him in. We shouldn't have sent him in. That's a dang coaching mistake. The kids are playing their tail off, and the coaches are screwing it up.
We just got to stop that little inside trap. You know, the option didn't hurt us much. We played pretty hard. We just got to stop that inside thing. Offensively, we kind of sputtered around, got the ball in the end zone. You know, defensively, we got to get off the field on that 2-minute drive.
Injuries to your offensive line. What do you do in the second half?
Oh, we're just going to play. We just got to keep playing.
Thank you, Coach.
He has a magnificent personality, I'll tell you.
We receive a lot of mail during the course of the season, and a lot of it's good mail, a lot of it's bad. And I would say that most of it is good, though, isn't it, Bill? Yeah, I think so. I'd say 95 to 98% of the mail we get is always good. But the one question that keeps coming up where Woody Hayes' name is involved, they say you're a man of no mercy. And yet, you know, frankly, I don't care much what they think.